Good evening from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 8 p.m. on the hour exactly on the 10th of December 2024 and Mama T, aka the Tanya, aka Psychedelic Dreamer, aka Miss Five, is back with you to read yet another Russian folktale, because I like to read two, at least two per video, but I broke it up because I wanted to return a call, which reminds me, yes, my phone is on silent. So we may do just one video this evening, we may do two depending on my energy levels and reservoirs. And not sure why my video looks blurry today. It is what it is, people of Earth. Well, Mama T has to make the best of whatever it is she has to work with, so most of the time you're not watching me anyway but listening, so I'm all good with that. And let us continue with Ivanoushka, the Simpleton. There's a lot of Jewish legends and myths that come from the Eastern European, all often focus on simpletons too. Must have been something that was a cultural thing, that you kind of made fun of the people that were a bit dull or not quite synapsing on all full channels, or there's lots of words in Yiddish for stupid people actually. But anyway, it must be a kind of an Eastern European, Russian, Polish, Ukrainian, Hungarian, Czechoslovakian, Lithuanian. What other countries have I not thought of? Well, anyway, it must be a thing. It must be a thing from over there, making fun of stupid people. But you know the old saying, people, stupid is as stupid does. Never underestimate another soul. You just don't know what treasures they have tucked away in their heart or mind or body or soul that they might have ready for you when you least suspect it. Not always quite as silly as they look. Babies. So, yes, as I said in my earlier video, respect should be accorded and afforded at all times. You may be in the company of angels. You may actually be in the company of someone who's severely handicapped in some way, in which case it doesn't hurt to be kind. Yeah, but for the grace of God go you. Life can turn on a dime. You can go from being highly successful with the world at your feet to having some kind of brain aneurysm, God forbid, and lose all your intellectual capacity, or you could end up like my mother with dementia, or Alzheimer's in her case. Or you could have some terrible accident or blow to the head. So really, don't make fun of other people's misfortunes is what I'm saying here. Anyway, let us continue with the story. Ivanoushka, the Simpleton. And the little picture they've put with it is the double eagle. Looks like the Polish double eagle. Where is it? All we've got is glare. It's not going to show up, is it? Bugger. Wait a minute. There it is. No. It's not quite going to show up, but it's there, people of Earth. Look up Gutenberg.org and follow along if you so wish, or read it in your own time if you so wish. You're a free person, human, fellow human on planet Earth. Do what thou willest and harm thee none. In the kingdom far away from our country. Why is it so fucking scathing hot in here? I don't know. Let me just, as a free person, exercise my right to turn down my air conditioner by 2 degrees. Right, let's start again. In a kingdom far away from our country, there was a town over which ruled the Tsar P with his Tsaritsa carrot. Actually says that, by the way. That's why I kind of stumbled a bit over the shock of a pea and a carrot being a Tsar and a Tsaritsa. But who am I to judge, am I right? He had many wise statesmen, wealthy princes, strong, powerful warriors, and also simple soldiers. 100,000 less one man. So what would that be? 99,999 soldiers. In that town lived all kinds of people. Honest, bearded merchants, keen and open-handed rascals, German tradesmen, lovely maidens, Russian drunkards, and, which would have been mainly plying vodka. Anyway, where were we? Russian drunkards. And in the suburbs all around, the peasants tilled the soil, sowed the wheat, ground the flour, traded in the markets, and spent the money in drink. In one of the suburbs there was a poor hut where an old man lived with his 3 sons, Thomas, Pachom, and Ivan. Not sure how to pronounce Pachom. It's spelled P-A-K-H, which should be a sound, O-M. Pachom. We'll go with Pachom. And Ivan. The old man was not only clever, he was wise. He had happened once to have a chat with the devil. Guess that happens from time to time. Automatic writing, trance drumming. I probably chat with the devil every freaking week, if the truth may be. But so far, no harm, no foul, by the grace of all the gods of holiness, righteousness, protectiveness. Just got to cover your bets a little bit, people of Earth. But anyway, the Dybbuk truly is in the roof, it's sacred space. You kind of have to laugh. But it's behaving itself in recent years, and I'm very grateful and happy about that. Ever since the COVIDian epoch began, the Dybbuk's behaved itself. So my theory that it protects me from malicious mortal men is not quite so crazy, given how good the Dybbuk's been to me in the last 4 years. To you, Dybbuk, but you still can't climb and take over my body. I simply won't allow it. Shut up, Davidson. Oh, you have to laugh. Well, it can't be him because he died 8.5 years ago. I don't think he's the Dybbuk, but he'd like to be. Creepy as fuck, isn't it, when you think about it? Ooh. Anyway, let us continue, my darlings. he had happened once to have a chat with the devil. They talked together while the old man treated him to a tumbler of wine and got out of the devil many great secrets. Guess he'd have quite a few, wouldn't he? But be careful what you ask for, people of earth. There's always a soul contract. Always. It can be a sneaky one that you least suspect too. Just ask, who was that famous fiddler who based that song The Devil Went Down to Georgia on? It was very famous. I can't think of the name now. He still haunts a cemetery in the south of America. Louisiana, I think it is. Oh, come on. I know the name of this guy. It's very, very famous. Was he a violinist or was he a jazz musician? Anyway, he sold his soul to the devil, became almost an overnight sensation. Brilliant musician, but he died very young. He paid his contract. This happens to quite a few musicians, actually. Fortunately, all my friends in the bands are well over the age of 27 and no longer have the Jimi Hendrix curse hanging over their head like the sword of Damocles. Thank the gods for that. I want all my boys and my talented women friends alive and well and making their music and prospering and service to the gods. And I fight for their right to do so, just like they fight for my right to do my wild boltering dance in service to the gods. I love you all. Platonically. Now, I got lost on talking about the devil and the secrets. Right, here we are. Back in the room, people of earth. Soon after this, it's really hot in here. I'm schwitzing. What is wrong with this air conditioner? It's like it reaches a point where it gets really humid before it cools right down again. Just have to be patient. It is working. It works brilliantly. Just every now and then there's this weird, almost lull, like it's probably AGL messing with it. Don't trust them. They take all my money and I don't trust them. Yes, you heard that from my lips, AGL. I don't trust any multinational corporations. Not one. Evil they are. They treat us like we're their slaves and at their beck and call, and they're just cannon fodder waiting to be picked off. It's terrible how we're treated in these modern times. Right, where were we? That's right. Soon after this, the peasant began to perform such marvellous acts that the neighbours called him a sorcerer, a magician, and even supposed that the devil was his kin. Hadn't met my mother and father and stepfather and godfather and half-sister and brother-in-law, had they? I really did have devils as kin, without a word of a lie, people of earth. Anyway, let's carry on. That's why I'm a bit squidgy and weird to this day. You would be too if you had my childhood. Anyway, yes, it is true that the old man performed great marvels. Were you longing for love? Go to him, bow to the old man, and he would give you some strange root, and the sweetheart would be yours. Sounds a bit like hoodoo, like the Caribbean and Southern American states practice that kind of magic too. If there is a theft, again to him, pardon me, with the tale. The old man conjures over some water, takes an officer along straight to the thief, and your lost is found. Only take care that the officer steals it not, which went on a lot in Poland and Russia. My mother-in-law actually told me, of blessed memory, my mother-in-law, Hilda Ahrensborn, Hinda Drukier, told me the story. Her father was a German Jew actually, although she was actually born in Belarus, but her father died when she was 2 weeks old. Terrible to lose your father of your baby when your baby's that young. So her mother Zlata moved to Poland, went to live with her parents. They had a farm, and she raised Hinda on her parents' farm. And this little tiny village called Niedzwidzica, which from what I can gather no longer exists. Must have been such a very small population, and probably because they killed all the Jews. The place must have been abandoned or maybe got amalgamated into a bigger town, I don't know. My father-in-law of blessed memory came from Baranovic, which apparently was a much bigger town, about 15 miles away from Niedzwidzica. And where was I going with that? Oh, about officers stealing. So anyway, my ex-husband's, the grandmother of my children. Let's just phrase it that way, because I don't even want to bring him into it. It's just too creepy and revolting. So anyway, the grandmother of my children, her father was a German Jew who died of typhus in Belarus. And but his brother owned a gumboot factory making gumboots from rubber, like a rubber factory. They actually made gumboots. And he was very, very wealthy, like very wealthy indeed. Would have had that business stripped off him when the Holocaust began, probably in the early 1930s, before the war even got going. They were stripping Jews of their business and their homes and wealth and titles. And anyway, I mentioned this to my mother, who, was German, raised in Hamburg, and she said, I know that business, I've heard of it. She said it was quite famous in Germany, one of the few factories that produce rubber. So she'd even heard of it as a child or teenager growing up. I was quite astonished by that. It just shows you the 6 degrees of separation. You never know who knows who and who's connected to what, even though it's quite disparate sides of that kind of war. It's astonishing. But anyway, it was a very famous factory, my mother said. She'd heard of it. Can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, so Hinda's biological uncle, that the wealthy factory owner, was, trying to help them along a bit because they were very poor after losing his brother, her father, her mother's husband. So he was trying to send parcels. This was before the war even began, because my mother-in-law emigrated from Poland in 1931 and came out to New Zealand to marry my father-in-law, and thus they both escaped the Holocaust, which was miraculous actually. So this would have been during her childhood or early adolescence, because she emigrated when she was 18 years old. Went by ship with a companion, a chaperone, out to New Zealand. So it would have been before then, before she was 18. She was still probably, 13, 14. Anyway, this particular uncle was sending the most exquisite Paris fashions, beautiful French Parisian from actual Paris frocks, I guess for her mother and for her to have and to wear. And he would send money as well sometimes, and other goodies from Germany. And it came to pass that they realised they weren't receiving the parcels. This went on for quite some time. Finally, they investigated it, and the Polish postmaster, the actual postmaster who's in a very well-respected, trusted position, was stealing all the Jewish parcels that were being sent. Isn't that disgusting? Like really disgusting. But that's how bad, of course, even pre-1939, pre-war, the racism and the anti-Semitism and the bigotry towards Jews was in Poland back in the day. So yes, as I said, that was a frequent complaint even amongst non-Jewish Gentile people, that I suppose the poorer folks they would target. Their stuff would disappear. Indeed, the old man was very wise, but his children were not his equals. 2 of them were almost as clever. They were married and had children, but Ivan, the youngest, was single. No one cared much for him because he was rather a fool, could not count 1, 2, 3, and only drank or ate or slept or lay around. Why care for such a person? Everyone knows life for some is brighter than for others. But Ivan was good-hearted and quiet. Ask of him a belt, he would give a caftan also. Take his mittens, he certainly would want to have you take his cap with them. And that is why all liked Ivan and usually called him Ivanoushka the Simpleton, though the name means fool. At the same time, it carries the idea of a kind heart. Our old man lived on with his sons until finally his hour came to die. He called his 3 sons and said to them, "Dear children of mine, my dying hour is at hand, and ye must fulfill my will. Every one of you come to my grave and spend 1 night with me. Thou, Tom, the 1st night. Thou, Pachom, the 2nd night. And thou, Ivanoushka the Simpleton, the 3rd. 2 of the brothers, as clever people, promised their father to do according to his bidding, but the simpleton did not even promise. He only scratched his head. The old man died and was buried. During the celebration, the family and guests had plenty of pancakes to eat and plenty of whiskey to wash them down. Now you remember that on the 1st night Thomas was to go to the grave, but he was too lazy, or possibly afraid. So he said to the simpleton, "I must be up very early tomorrow morning. I have to thresh. Go thou for me to our father's grave." "All right," answered Ivanoushka the simpleton. He took a slice of black rye bread, went to the grave, stretched himself out, and soon began to snore. The church clock struck midnight. The wind roared. The owl cried in the trees. The grave opened and the old man came out and asked, "Who is there?" "I," answered Ivanoushka. "Well, my dear son, I will reward thee for thine obedience," said the father. Lo, the cocks crowed, and the old man dropped into the grave. The simpleton arrived home and went to the warm stove. "What happened?" asked the brothers. "Nothing," he answered. "I slept the whole night and am hungry now." The second night it was Pachom's turn to go to his father's grave. He thought it over and said to the simpleton, "Tomorrow is a busy day with me. Go in my place to our father's grave." "All right," answered Ivanoushka. He took along with him a piece of fish pie, went to the grave and slept. Midnight approached. The wind roared. Crows came flying. The grave opened and the old man came out. "Who is there?" he asked. "I," answered his son, the simpleton. "Well, my beloved one, I will not forget thine obedience," said the old man. The cocks crowed and the old man dropped into his grave. Ivanoushka the simpleton came home, went to sleep on the warm stove, and in the morning his brothers asked, "What happened?" "Nothing," answered Ivanoushka. On the third night the brothers said to Ivan the simpleton, "It is thy turn to go to the grave of our father. The father's will should be done." "All right," answered Ivanoushka. He took some cookies, put on his sheepskin and arrived at the grave. At midnight his father came out. "Who is there?" he asked. "I," answered Ivanoushka. "Well," said the old father, "my obedient son, thou shalt be rewarded." And the old man shouted with a mighty voice, "Arise, bay horse, thou wind-swift steed, appear before me in my need. Stand up as in the storm, the weed." I don't think they meant cannabis, by the way. They might have though, just saying. Suspend belief. And lo, Ivanoushka the simpleton beheld a horse running, the earth trembling under his hoofs, his eyes like stars, and out of his mouth and ears smoke coming in a cloud. The horse approached and stood before the old man. "What is thy wish?" he asked with a man's voice. The old man crawled into his left ear, washed and adorned himself, and jumped out of his right ear as a young brave fellow, never seen before. "Now listen attentively," he said. "To thee, my son, I give this horse. And thou, my faithful horse and friend, serve my son as thou hast served me." Hardly had the old man pronounced these words when the first cock crew and the sorcerer dropped into his grave. Our simpleton went quietly back home stretched himself under the icons, and his snoring was heard far around. "What happened?" the brothers asked again. They're very nosy for people that couldn't be bothered to turn up to their father's grave, aren't they? Motherfuckers. But the simpleton did not even answer. He only waved his hand. The three brothers continued to live their usual life, the two with cleverness, and the younger with foolishness. They lived a day in and an equal day out. But one morning there came quite a different day from all others. It's bound to happen sooner or later, people of Earth. I've had some very extraordinary days of my life. Very extraordinary indeed. Sometimes I wonder if I'm part fae. Like that young man, that young Nepalese man at the Brooklyn Standard one night said, "You're a fairy." I just stared at him like this, schoolmarmishly, kind of in surprise. No, maybe I'm under, I am under Titania's realm some of the time, but most of the time, just a short, fat hobbit woman. I bleed. Well, I used to bleed once upon a time. But if you cut me, I bleed. I have emotions. I'm very carnal and earthy, only when I want to. And I fall in love and I make mistakes, and sometimes, just sometimes, I create magic of the most astonishing kind. But I'm a real woman, is what I'm saying. Nothing weird, people of Earth, contrary to everyone's perceptions of me. Ha ha! But then the spirits tell me I haven't met my true self yet, and when I do, it's going to blow even my mind. So that gave me pause for thought too, people of Earth. I'm sure they're talking though, like as a kind of a parable, metaphorically. I don't think they mean that quite literally, but one can never tell. Anyway, enough about me and my relationship with the spirits and the fae. You just have to carry on, suspend belief. Sometimes it's the only thing you can do. But anyway, there had come a different day from all others. They learned that big men were going all over the country with trumpets and players, that those men announced everywhere the will of the Tsar, and the Tsar's will was this: the Tsar P and the Tsaritsa Carrot had an only daughter, the Tsarevna Bactriana, pardon me, heiress to the throne. She was such a beautiful maiden that the sun blushed when she looked at it. Oh, isn't that a beautiful description? Imagine making the sun blush. Not sure I'd be comfortable with that. Might weird me out a bit. Well, anyway, it's a story. And the moon, altogether too bashful, covered itself from her eyes. Tsar and Tsaritsa had a hard time to decide to whom they should give their daughter for a wife. It must be a man who could be a proper ruler over the country, a brave warrior on the battlefield, a wise judge in the council, an advisor to the Tsar, and a suitable heir after his death. Not your average schlemiel, you understand. They also wanted a bridegroom who was young, brave and handsome. Who doesn't? I'm too old for that nonsense now, thank the gods, but if I had my time again. And they wanted him to be in love with their Tsarevna. Now that's important. They actually thought about that it's important that she's actually loved. Oh, that would have been easy enough. But the trouble was that the beautiful Tsarevna loved no one. Speaks volumes, doesn't it? Sometimes the Tsar mentioned to her this or that one, always the same answer. I do not love him. The Tsaritsa tried too with no better result. I do not like him. A day came when the Tsar P and his Tsaritsa Carrot seriously addressed their daughter on the subject of marriage and said, Our beloved child, our very beautiful Tsarevna Bactriana, it is time for thee to choose a bridegroom. Envoys of all descriptions, from kings and tsars and princes, have worn our threshold, drunk dry all the cellars, and thou hast not yet found anyone according to thy heart's wish. The Tsarevna answered, Sovereign, and thou Tsaritsa, my dear mother, I feel sorry for you, and my wish is to obey your desire. So let fate decide who is destined to become my husband. I ask you to build a hall, a high hall with 32 circles, and above those circles a window. I will sit at that window, and do you order all kinds of people, Tsars, kings, Tsarovichi, Karolevichi, brave warriors, and handsome fellows to come. The one who will jump through the 32 circles, reach my window, and exchange with me golden rings, he it will be who is destined to become my husband, son and heir to you. She's probably thinking that this was impossible, you understand. I know what she's about. I'm one step ahead of her. I kind of get it, sisters of Estros. One should only marry because one's deeply in love and of their own free will and choice. I'm very particular about that. Even then, love can quickly turn sour. The minute you sign the ketubah, actually. Ask me how I know. Fucking bluebeard archetypes. Anyway, never mind. The Tsar and Tsaritsa listened attentively to the words of their bright Tsarevna, and finally they said, According to thy wish shall it be done. Shut up, Davidson. It's not your business to interfere in my videos. He just yelled out, next time you will marry someone who loves you. Yeah, whatever. That's a fairy story too. Also, I've got no intention of marrying you ever again. Just saying. I invite a true lover into my life for a mutually exclusive, long-term partnership, hopefully for the rest of our lives together, happy ever after, but there will be no soul contracts done in blood or in legalese, because I fucking hate lawyers. Trust me on that one. Anyway, where were we? I might consider a pagan hand fasting for a year and a day though, because how bad? What can go wrong in a year and a day? a lot, but never mind. I'm joking about that. But that kind of contract is not so bad. After a year and a day can say, yeah, but nah, but yeah, but nah. Shake hands, go your separate ways. No harm, no foul. No grisly, ugly, putrid divorces. Ugh! Putrid to this day. I feel triggered just thinking about it. Anyway, this is what happens when you marry putrid men and putrid people. Well, where were we? That's right, she was making an impossible task. She's a very smart Tsarevna. The Tsar and Tsaritsa listened attentively to the words of their bright Tsarevna, and finally they said, according to thy wish shall it be done. In no time the hall was ready, a very high hall, adorned with Venetian velvets, with pearls for tassels, with golden designs, and 32 circles on both sides of the window high above. Envoys went to the different kings and sovereigns. I'm not getting married again. Go back to the light. But as if he's married to me. It's rude. He's an enemy of mine, by the way. You know how I was joking about the dibble earlier? Here he is. We're going to ignore him because he doesn't belong here. Get out of my house. Honestly. Rude and cheeky and obnoxious it is. He says, it's because you're reading Russian fairy stories. Any excuse. Any excuse. Honestly, you kind of have to laugh. In no time the hall was ready, a very tall hall adorned with Venetian velvets, with pearls for tassels. Now that would be pretty, wouldn't it? With gold. There's a lot I could say about pearls being tassels, given recent information that was brought to my mind recently, but we won't go there. Go, friends. With golden designs. And 32, be quiet, Davidson. And 32 circles on both sides of the window high above. Envoys went to the different kings and sovereigns. Pigeons flew with orders to the subjects to gather the proud and the humble into the town of the Tsarpi and his Tsaritsa carrot. It was announced everywhere that the one who could jump through the circles, reach the window and exchange golden rings with the Tsarevna Bakhtryana, that man would be the lucky one, notwithstanding his rank, Tsar or free Cossack, king or warrior, Tsarevich, Korolevich, or fellow without any kinfolk or country. The great day, I'm just laughing about something. Never mind. I can't share it with you. When I find out the truth, I'll share it with you because I have a feeling it's going to be pretty funny. Pretty funny, the little joke that's been played on me. Let me just say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to feed them. They like being fed. The only way to deal with those types is to starve them with the energy of the Tanya. Naughty, 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 very naughty. The great day arrived. Crowds pressed to the field. where stood the newly built hall, brilliant as a star. Up high at the window, the Tsarevna was sitting, adorned with precious stones, clad in velvet and pearls. Oh, I do love double velvet too, and precious stones. It's ridiculous that I've ended up in this situation, people, through no fault of my own. But never mind. C'est la vie, babies. I'm rich in spirit. Very, very rich in spirit. The people below were roaring like an ocean. The Tsar with his Tsaritsa was sitting upon a throne. Around them were boyars, warriors, and councillors. That was the other country I was trying to think of, the former Yugoslavia, Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Macedonia, I think is part of that still too, or used to be, once upon a time. Romania, yeah, all of those countries. Anyway, where were we? The suitors on horseback, proud, handsome, and brave, whistle and ride round about, but looking at the high window, their hearts drop. There were already several fellows who had tried. Each would take a long start, balance himself, spring and fall back like a stone, a laughing stock for the witnesses. The brothers of Ivanoushka the Simpleton were preparing themselves to go to the field also. The Simpleton said to them, "Take me along with you." "Thou fool," laughed the brothers. "Stay at home and watch the chickens." It's a bit like the Cinderella story, isn't it? "All right," he answered, went to the chicken yard and lay down. But as soon as the brothers were away, our Ivanoushka the Simpleton walked to the wide fields and shouted with a mighty voice, "Arise, bay horse, thou wind-swift steed, appear before me in my need, stand up as in the storm the weed." The glorious horse came running. Oh, I do love horses, especially glorious ones. Flames shone out of his eyes, out of his nostrils smoke came in clouds, and the horse asked with a man's voice, "What is thy wish?" Ivanoushka the Simpleton crawled into the horse's left ear, transformed himself and reappeared at the right ear, such a handsome fellow that in no book is there written any description of him. No one has ever seen such a fellow. He jumped onto the horse and touched his iron sides with a silk whip. The horse became impatient, lifted himself above the ground, higher and higher above the dark woods below the travelling clouds. He swam over the large rivers, jumped over the small ones, as well as over hills and mountains. Ivanoushka the Simpleton arrived at the hall of the Tsarevna Baktriana, flew up like a hawk, passed through 30 circles, could not reach the last two, and went away like a whirlwind. The people were shouting, "Take hold of him! Take hold of him!" The Tsar jumped to his feet. The Tsaritsa screamed. Everyone was roaring in amazement. The brothers of Ivanoushka came home, and there was but one subject of conversation. What a splendid fellow they had seen! What a wonderful start to pass through the 30 circles. Brothers, that fellow was I, said Ivanoushka the simpleton, who had long since arrived. Keep still and do not fool us, answered the brothers. The next day the two brothers were going again to the Zatsky show, and Ivanoushka the simpleton said again, Take me along with you. For thee, fool, this is thy place. Be quiet at home and scare sparrows from the pea field instead of the scarecrow. All right, answered the simpleton, and he went to the field and began to scare the sparrows. But as soon as the brothers left home, Ivanoushka started to the wide field and shouted out loud with a mighty voice, Arise, bay horse, thou wind-swift steed, appear before me in my need, stand up as in the storm, the weed. And here came the horse, the earth trembling under his hooves, the sparks flying around, his eyes like flames, and out of his nostrils smoke curling up. For what dost thou wish me? Ivanoushka the simpleton crawled into the left ear of the horse, and when he appeared out of the right ear, oh my, what a fellow he was! Even in fairy tales there are never such handsome fellows, to say nothing of everyday life. Ivanoushka lifted himself on the iron back of his horse and touched him with a strong whip. The noble horse grew angry, made a jump and went higher than the dark woods, a little below the travelling clouds. One jump, 1 mile is behind, a second jump, a river is behind, and a third jump, and they were at the hall. Then the horse, with Ivanoushka on his back, flew like an eagle high up into the air, past the 31st circle, failed to reach the last one, and swept away like the wind. The people shouted, Take hold of him! Take hold of him! The Tsar jumped to his feet, the Tsaritsa screamed, the princes and boyars opened their mouths. The brothers of Ivanoushka the simpleton came home. They were wondering at the fellow. Yes, an amazing fellow indeed. 1 circle only was unreached. Brothers, that fellow over there was I, said Ivanoushka to them. Keep still in thy own place, thou fool, was their sneering answer. The third day, the brothers were going again to the strange entertainment of the Tsar, and again Ivanoushka the simpleton said to them, Take me along with you. Fool, they laughed. There is food to be given to the hogs. Better go to them. All right, the younger brother answered, and quietly went to the backyard and gave food to the hogs. But as soon as his brothers had left home, our Ivanoushka the simpleton hurried to the wide field and shouted out loud, Arise, bay horse, them wind-swift steed, appear before me in my need. Stand up as in the storm, the weed. At once the horse came running. The earth trembled. Where he stepped there appeared ponds. Where his hoofs touched there were lakes. Out of his eyes shone flames. Out of his ears smoke came like a cloud. For what dost thou wish me? The horse asked in a man's voice. Ivanoushka the simpleton crawled into his right ear and jumped out of his left one, and a handsome fellow he was. A young girl could not even imagine such a one. Ivanoushka struck his horse, pulled the bridle tight, and lo, he flew high up in the air. The wind was left behind, and even the swallow, the sweet winged passenger, must not aspire to do the same. Our hero flew like a cloud high up into the sky, his silver-chained mail rattling, his fair curls floating in the wind. He arrived at the Tsarevna's high hall. What on earth is my neighbour doing running around with a torch? Odd. Must have lost power. Sorry. He arrived at the Tsarevna's high hall, struck his horse once more, and oh, how the wild horse did jump! Look there, the fellow reaches all the circles. He is near the window. He presses the beautiful Tsarevna with his strong arms, kisses her on the sugar lips, exchanges golden rings, and, like a storm, sweeps through the fields. There is crushing everyone on his way. And the Tsarevna? Well, she did not object. She even adorned his forehead with a diamond star. The people roared, "Take hold of him!" But the fellow had already disappeared, and no traces were left behind. The Tsar P lost his royal dignity. I think that means what we think it means, people of Earth. Losing your dignity is a euphemism for losing your... never mind. The Tsaritsa carrot screamed louder than ever, which sounds pretty loud. And the wise counsellors only shook their wise heads and remained silent. The brothers came home talking and discussing the wonderful matter. Indeed, they shook their heads. Only think of it! The fellow succeeded, and our Tsarevna has a bridegroom. But who is he? Where is he? Brothers, the fellow is I, said Ivanoushka the simpleton, smiling. Keep still, I, and the brothers almost slapped him. The matter proved to be quite serious this time, and the Tsar and Tsaritsa issued an order to surround the town with armed men, whose duty it was to let everyone enter, but not a soul go out. Everyone had to appear at the royal palace and show his forehead. From early in the morning, the crowds were gathering around the palace. Each forehead was inspected, but there was no star on any. Dinner time was approaching, and in the palace they even forgot to cover the oak tables with white spreads. The brothers of Ivanoushka had also to show their foreheads, and the simpleton said to them, "Take me along with you." "Thy place is right here," they answered jokingly. "But say, what is the matter with thy head, that thou hast covered it with cloths? Did somebody strike thee?" "No, nobody struck me. I myself struck the door with my forehead. The door remained all right, but on my forehead there is a knob." The brothers laughed and went. Soon after them, Ivanoushka left home and went straight to the window of the Tsarevna, where she sat leaning on the windowsill looking for her betrothed. "There is our man," shouted the guards when the simpleton appeared among them. "Show thy forehead. Hast thou the star?" And they laughed. Ivanoushka the simpleton gave no heed to their bidding, but refused. The guards were shouting at him, and the Tsarevna heard the noise and ordered the fellow to her presence. There was nothing to be done but to take off the cloths. Behold, the star was shining in the middle of his forehead. The Tsarevna took Ivanoushka by the hand, brought him before Tsar P, and said, "He it is, my Tsar and father, who is destined to become my groom, thy son-in-law and heir." It was too late to object. The Tsar ordered preparations for the bridal festivities, and our Ivanoushka the simpleton was wedded to the Tsarevna Bactriana. The Tsar, the Tsaritsa, the young bride and groom, and their guests feasted 3 days. There was fine eating and generous drinking. There were all kinds of amusements also. The brothers of Ivanoushka were created governors, and each one received a village and a house. I don't think that's very fair, since they were so lazy and not very nice either to their father or their brother, but there is that. The story is told in no time, but to live a life requires time and patience. The brothers of Ivanoushka the simpleton were clever men, we know, and as soon as they became rich, everyone understood it at once, and they themselves became quite sure about it, and began to pride themselves, to boast and to brag. The humble ones did not dare look toward their homes, and even the boyars had to take off their fur caps on their porches. Once several boyars came to Tsar P and said, "Great Tsar, the brothers of thy son-in-law are bragging around that they know the place where grows an apple tree with silver leaves and golden apples, and they want to bring this apple tree to thee." The Tsar immediately called the brothers before him and bade them bring at once the wonderful tree, the apple tree with silver leaves and golden apples. The brothers had ever so many excuses, but the Tsar would have his way. They were given fine horses out of the royal stables and went on their errand. Our friend, Ivanoushka the simpleton, found somewhere a lame old horse, jumped on his back facing the tail, and also went, Hayoka style, riding backwards. He really is Hayoka in the Native American tradition. He went to the wide field, grasped the lame horse by the tail, threw him off roughly and shouted, "You crows and magpies, come, come, there is lunch prepared for you." This done, he ordered his horse, his spirited courser, to appear, and as usual he crawled into one ear, jumped out the other ear, and they went where? Toward the east, where grew the wonderful apple tree with silver leaves and golden apples. I think it can be found in the moon goddess Diana's orchard, am I right? Pretty sure that's where I've heard that before, which would have been in ancient Greece. Or was it Rome? Diana, the goddess of the hunt. But she's called something else in Greece. I think she's Artemis, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, it grew near silver waters upon golden sand. When Ivanoushka, does sound like Greece, doesn't it? Silver waters and golden sand. When Ivanoushka reached the place, he uprooted the tree and turned toward home. His ride was long and he felt tired. Before he arrived at his town, Ivanoushka pitched his tent and lay down for a rest. Along the same road came his brothers. The two were proud no more, but rather depressed, not knowing what answer to give the Tsar. They perceived the tent with silver top, and nearby the wonderful apple tree. They came nearer, and "There is our Simpleton," exclaimed the brothers. Then they awakened Ivanoushka and wanted to buy the apple tree. They were rich and offered 3 carts filled with silver. "Well, brothers, this tree, this wonderful apple tree, is not for sale," answered Ivanoushka. "But if you wish to obtain it, you may. The price will not be too high. A toe from each right foot." The brothers thought the matter over and finally decided to give the desired price. It's going to be painful, very, very painful. Ivanoushka cut the toes off, gave them the apple tree, and the happy brothers brought it to the Tsar, and there was no end to their bragging. "Here, all-powerful Tsar," they said, "we went far and had many a trouble on our way, but thy wish is fulfilled." The Tsar P seemed pleased, ordered a feast, commanded tunes to be played and drums beaten, rewarded the 2 brothers of Ivanoushka the Simpleton, each one with a town, and praised them. The boyars and warriors became furious. "Fie," they said to the Tsar, "there is nothing wonderful in such an apple tree with golden apples and silver leaves. The brothers of thy son-in-law are bragging around that they will get thee a pig with golden bristles and silver tusks, and not alone the pig, but also her 12 little ones." The Tsar called the brothers before him and ordered them to bring the very pig with her golden bristles and silver tusks, and her 12 little ones. The brothers' excuses were not listened to, and so they went. Once more the brothers were travelling on a difficult errand, looking for a golden bristled pig with silver tusks and 12 little pigs. At that time Ivanoushka the Simpleton made up his mind to take a trip somewhere. He put his saddle on a cow, jumped up on her back, facing the tail, and left the town. He came to a field, grasped the cow by the horns, threw her far on the prairie and shouted, "Come, come, you grey wolves and red foxes, there is a dinner for you." Then he ordered his faithful horse, crawled into one ear and jumped out of the other. Master and courser went on an errand, this time toward the south. 1, 2, 3, and they were in dark woods. In these woods the wished-for pig was walking around, a golden-bristled pig with silver tusks. She was eating roots, and after her followed 12 little pigs. Ivanoushka, the simpleton, threw over the pig a silk rope with a running noose, gathered the little pigs into a basket, and went home. But before he reached the town of the Tsarpi, he pitched a tent with a golden top and lay down for a rest. On the same road the brothers came along with gloomy faces, not knowing what to say to the Tsar. They saw the tent, and nearby the very pig they were searching for with golden bristles and silver tusks was fastened with a silk rope and in a basket were the 12 little pigs. The brothers looked into the tent. Ivanoushka again! They awakened him and wanted to trade for the pig. They were ready to give in exchange 3 carts loaded with precious stones. "Brothers, my pig is not for trade," said Ivanoushka. "But if you want her so much, well, 1 finger from each right hand will pay for her." The brothers thought over the case for a long while. They reasoned thus: people live happily without brains. Why not live without fingers? So they allowed Ivanoushka to cut off their fingers, then took the pig to the Tsar, and their bragging had no end. "The Tsar's sovereign," they said, "we went everywhere beyond the blue sea, beyond the dark woods, we passed through deep sands, we suffered hunger and thirst, but thy wish is accomplished." The Tsar was glad to have such faithful servants. He gave a feast, great among feasts, rewarded the brothers of Ivanoushka the simpleton, created them big boyars and praised them. The other boyars and different court people said to the Tsar, "There is nothing wonderful in such a pig. Golden bristles, silver tusks, yes, it is fine, but a pig remains a pig forever. The brothers of thy son-in-law are bragging now that they will steal for thee out of the stables of the fiery dragon a mare with golden mane and diamond hoofs." Woo! That's a tall ask, isn't it, people of Earth? The Tsar at once called the brothers of Ivanoushka the simpleton and ordered the golden-maned mare with the diamond hoofs. The brothers swore that they never said such words, but the Tsar did not listen to their protests. "Take as much gold as you want, take warriors as many as you wish, but bring me the beautiful mare with golden mane and diamond hoofs. If you do it, my reward will be great. If not, your fate is to become peasants as before." The brothers went, 2 sad heroes. Their march was slow. Where to go they did not know. Ivanoushka also jumped upon a stick and went leaping toward the field. Once in the wide open field, he ordered his horse, crawled into one ear, came out of the other, and both started for a faraway country, for an island, a big island. Could it be Australia? Who can tell? On that island, in an iron stable, the fiery dragon was watchfully guarding his glory. The golden maned mare with diamond hoofs, which was locked under 7 locks behind 7 heavy doors. Our Ivanoushka journeyed and journeyed, how long we do not know, until at last he arrived at that island, struggled 3 days with the dragon and killed him on the 4th day. Then he began to tear down the locks. That took 3 days more. Then when he had done this, he brought out the wonderful mare by the golden mane and turned homeward. The road was long, and before he reached his town, Ivanoushka, according to his habit, pitched his tent with a diamond top and laid him down for rest. The brothers came along. Gloomy they were, fearing the Tsar's anger. Lo, they heard neighing. The earth trembled. 'Twas the golden-maned mare. Though in the dusk of evening the brothers saw her golden mane shining like fire, they stopped, awakened Ivanoushka the simpleton, and wanted to trade for the wonderful mare. They were willing to give him a bushel of precious stones each, and promised even more. Ivanoushka said, "Though my mare is not for trade, yet if you want her, I'll give her to you. And you, do you each give me your right ears?" The brothers did not even argue, but let Ivanoushka cut off their ears, took hold of the bridle and went directly to the Tsar. They presented to him the golden-maned mare with diamond hoofs, and there was no end of bragging. "We went beyond seas, beyond mountains," the brothers said to the Tsar. "We fought the fiery dragon who bit off our ears and fingers. We had no fear but one desire, to serve thee faithfully. We shed our blood and lost our wealth." The Tsar P poured gold over them, created them the very highest men after himself, and planned such a feast that the royal cooks were tired out with cooking to feed all the people, and the cellars were fairly emptied. The Tsar P was sitting on his throne, one brother on his right hand, the other brother on his left hand. The feast was going on, all seemed jolly, all were drinking, all were noisy as bees in a beehive. In the midst of it, a young, brave fellow, Ivanoushka the simpleton, entered the hall, the very fellow who had passed the 32 circles and reached the window of the beautiful Tsarevna Bactriana. When the brothers noticed him, one almost choked himself with wine, the other was suffocating on a piece of swan. They looked at him, opened wide their eyes, and remained silent. Ivanoushka the simpleton bowed to his father-in-law and told the story as the story was. He told about the apple tree, the wonderful apple tree with silver leaves and golden apples. He told about the pig, the golden bristled pig with silver tusks into 12 little ones. And finally, he told about the marvellous mare with a golden mane and diamond hoofs. He finished and laid out ears, fingers, and toes. It is the exchange I got, said Ivanoushka. The Tsar P became furious, stamped his feet, ordered the two brothers to be driven away with brooms. One was sent to feed the pigs, another to watch the turkeys. The Tsar seated Ivanoushka beside himself, creating him the highest among the very high. In rank, you understand, not in any other things. Just thought I'd clarify that point. The feast lasted a very long time until all were tired of feasting. Ivanoushka took control of the Tsarstvo, ruling wisely and severely. After his father-in-law's death, he occupied his place. His subjects liked him. He had many children. Excuse me. And his beautiful Tsaritsa Bactriana remained beautiful forever. The end. So, thus concludes today's readings of Even Date, and it's 9:23 p.m, so I might go and watch a little bit of Netflix before I retire to my boudoir and dream the psychedelic dreams and live my best life in the astral plane. Sometimes I bring back information from that plane, depending on how good the dreams are. Sometimes I don't. I actually haven't been dreaming much in recent weeks. I think it's because I'm not getting enough oxygen with my sleep apnea. Not responding to the mask and the snorkel. What does it look like again? The rhinoceros beetle. Oh, it's fucking hideous. It's a cosmic joke. I have to lie in bed looking like a rhinoceros beetle to stay alive, people of Earth. But hopefully, by the grace of all the gods, in another, it'll be 6 months in January. So, in another 6.5 months, Mama T will have improved with her sleep apnea. Not looking too good so far at the moment, but I've got enough energy to read you fairy stories on YouTube, so I guess that's a positive. Still able to do the wild dance for 3 or sometimes 4 hours, and that too is a positive. But alas, I'm still a bit too fat. But anyway, I guess if it doesn't work in 12 months, I'll have proved to my worthy, noble doctors that it doesn't work on me, and then I'll just have to decide whether I continue with it or not, because if a thing isn't working, I don't see any point in continuing with it, people of Earth, but it might still be beneficial to carry on with it for the next however many years till I finally pop my hobbit clogs and leave this plane and move into the next dimension. So there is that. But anyway, I'm not going to stress too much about it, but I would like to have my dreams back. It occurred to me, that maybe I'm not dreaming because I'm better and I'm no longer fucking thrashing in my sleep, fighting between the threshold between life and death and that gigantic portal that keeps us here, sometimes against our own will, by the way. But anyway, it could be messing with my dreams. I used to have amazing dreams. I used to quite delight in some of my dreams. But anyway, if the gods decree that I dream, I'll dream. And if I don't, I don't. It's very dark out in the neighbourhood. Most of the people in the neighbours have all gone to sleep. It's only early, 9:26. I guess most of them go to work the next day though. Probably tired from working in the heat and all decided to go to bed early. But it's very isolating when you look out of your dark windows and all the hills are all dark and you're the only one sitting here with lights. I mean, there's a few houses with lights, but the ones in my immediate vicinity are all snoozing. All snoozing, probably having their own dreams. Oh, bless. I feel like singing Dream a Little Dream of Me, but I don't want those people to dream of me because that would be weird. Don't dream of me. Dream of your own true beloved ones. Stay out of my dreaming. I don't live in your world. You live in mine. But if you get too weird and creepy, I'll have to kick you out of my psychedelic dreaming and carry on without you. Oh, people of Earth. Well, what can I say? It's how I exist in this weird verkachte post-COVIDian epoch of lunacy. Dear Goddess. But anyway, have a wonderful evening, afternoon, morning, night, wherever you are in the space-time continuum, and sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world in the 7 seas. Everybody's looking for something.